Hello. In the traditional motion picture story, the villains are usually defeated. The ending is a happy one. I can make no such promise for the picture you're about to watch.
Well, sure, I'd love to take off my hat. It's actually my hair, you know? I have lots of witnesses, so it is. But, hey, it's mine. It may not be pretty, but it's mine.
Both Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan had a number of things in common, including the slogan that Reagan had used to launch his 1980 presidential campaign.
Let us pledge to each other, with this great lady looking on, that we can, and so help us God, we will make America great again. Thank you very much.
And we will make America great again. God bless you and good night. I love you.
I think he just brings an optimism back to the United States that we haven't seen since Reagan.
Of all the presidents in the post-war era, Ronald Reagan was the one about whom the establishment in Washington, D.C. was the most apprehensive before Donald Trump. And Reagan, like Trump, was perceived as an outsider, an American nationalist, someone that didn't appreciate the world. So in that sense, the two of them were the two figures, I think, who became president, who were the most feared by the national establishment.
Reagan and Trump were at the age of 70, the oldest ever US presidents to be elected. The two right-wing Republicans had been Democrats in their youth, and both had taken an unorthodox route to the White House. Reagan came via Hollywood.
I'm the one they're all talking about.
Did you see him? Delicious.
I'd started as sort of an Errol Flynn of the bees.
Now wait here, both of you.
Tough luck, son. I guess we can't all have charm and good looks, too.
I made about 8 of those in 11 months. I was brave, but in a kind of a low-budget fashion, you know.
New York City. And in this town, the sky's the limit. Believe me, I know.
Donald Trump was rather less low budget.
My name is Donald Trump, and I'm the largest developer in New York. I built a lot of buildings, but I also own golf courses, resorts.
He was a billionaire property tycoon who hosted a reality TV show.
I even have a television show. I am officially running for President of the United States.
The Donald finally announced he was running for the presidency after 30 years of hinting he would, and the severest doubts were raised about his fitness for office, just as had happened with Ronald Reagan. I made a film about Reagan when he ran for president in 1980. He'd served for 8 years as governor of California, America's largest state. But he was still widely seen as a trigger-happy cowboy.
I hope it's not a Greek tragedy.
I questioned Reagan at a rare press conference.
Governor, from the BBC in London, do you have any doubts about your ability to play the role of America's leading man?
Do I have any doubts about my ability to play the role of leading man in America? I've never thought of it that way. I left that profession. I have confidence, based on my experience as governor, that I can offer a better solution to the problems than either of the men who are running against me.
Reagan's campaign meetings are expensively stage-managed spectaculars made for the television cameras.
I would like to take the lead in taking government off the backs of the American people and turning you loose to do what I know you can do. Thank you.
For his supporters, Reagan was the strong man America needed to stand up to the Soviet Union and its other enemies abroad. For his opponents, Reagan was a warmonger who threatened to attack the Iranian Ayatollahs who'd taken Americans hostage. The 50 US diplomats and citizens had been held hostage for over a year.
Do you really think Iranian terrorists would have taken Americans hostage if Ronald Reagan were president? Do you really think the Russians would have invaded Afghanistan if Ronald Reagan were president? Do you really think third-rate military dictators would laugh at America and burn our flag in contempt if Ronald Reagan were president?
As with Trump, the prospect of Ronald Reagan in the White House powerfully divided opinion on both sides of the Atlantic.
From the day that Reagan won the election, the metropolitan liberal elite, the media elite, they condescended to him, they laughed at him. In fact, at no point during the 8 years did they ever concede that there might be a decent point that Reagan had to make.
I was afraid, and I think, most of my friends, we were afraid. How could a B-movie actor be suddenly going to be ruler of the world? Fear, his finger on the button, doddery, vague. Would he have any idea what he was doing?
Well, it's great to be here on Saturday Live. Well, it's great to be here on Saturday anyway. I'm here to answer your questions, so fire away, fellows, as I said to the 6th Fleet yesterday.
Mr. President, what exactly are you doing over here?
Well, sir, let me answer this way. I don't know. Pretty smart for a guy of 103, huh? Next answer, please.
The satirist's victim, President Reagan, arrived in Britain. Like Donald Trump today, he had a woman prime minister as his opposite number. She fiercely rejected Reagan's spitting image.
In a way, there was a love story, a political love story between Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. They found they believed in the same things, the same basic things: low taxes, strong defence, anti-communism.
We in Britain think you are a wonderful president. We share so many of the same goals and a determination to achieve them, which you summed up so well, and alas, I cannot imitate this wonderful American English accent. You ain't seen nothing yet.
I think President Reagan was a man who knew how to handle women. He had spent a lifetime handling beautiful women, and he knew what it took to do that. She responded very much to that. She liked to be treated as a woman, not just as a prime minister.
Based on the career that I once had before this one, you are a very tough act to follow.
They both saw communism as fundamentally evil, that the communist system needed to be brought down and destroyed.
This poster parodying the film Gone with the Wind was for the most explosive love story ever. She promised to follow him to the end of the earth. He promised to organise it.
Well, what do you have to say this morning, Mr. President? Good morning.
But surprisingly, following Mrs. Thatcher's example, Reagan made a U-turn and forged a strong relationship with Mikhail Gorbachev, the reformist Soviet leader.
Mikhail Sergeyevich, доброе утро!
The two men met in Reykjavik, the Icelandic capital, and were to reach a deal on cutting back their country's nuclear weapons. Donald Trump says he wants to follow suit and have a meeting with the current Russian leader, Vladimir Putin.
I think there will be a summit in Reykjavik even, which is quite interesting. Not unlike the summit between Reagan and Gorbachev some decades ago, where people were equally pessimistic, and yet what resulted? Frankly, the end of the Cold War. And we need an end to this Cold War.
So how does the veteran US diplomat Raymond Seitz answer the great question about what is the exact nature of Trump's relationship with Putin?
Damned if I know. I can't figure it out.
But what is really President-elect Trump's view of Mr. Putin? I don't think he's just going to come over all soft and furry and be out there allowing President Putin to stroke him and they go off hand in hand into the sunset. No, that's not going to happen. Obviously it's not.
The admiration between Putin and Trump is horrific. I don't think it'll last for any length of time because they are both dangerous narcissists, very easily offended and affronted, and one way or another one of them will rub the other one up the wrong way. It seems that Putin may well have all sorts of blackmailable material against Trump.
The notorious leaked dossier, with its lurid allegations of Donald Trump watching Russian prostitutes urinate on a bed in a Moscow hotel, and any tapes of the so-called Golden Shower, would provide the Kremlin with classic blackmail material, if the story is true.
It's all fake news. It's phony stuff. It didn't happen. It was a group of opponents that got together, sick people, and they put that crap together. Does anyone really believe that story? I'm also very much of a germaphobe, by the way. Believe me.
Okay, fine. Russia hacked the election. Are you happy, Mom? Next question. Yes, you, sir.
Yes, hello. I'm American journalist Wolf Blitzer. Are you sure Russia was behind hacking?
I mean, maybe.
But are you really sure?
It was China. I mean Canada. It was Meryl Streep. Okay, this press conference is over.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
I think there was a shared feeling that we were two of the most vilified people in the Western world.
Well, thank you. Good evening, Mississippi.
If I think back through all of it, you know, what were the big contributions that I perhaps made, or the contributions I made towards the campaign? One was making Brexit part of the story, something that he completely embraced.
I think it's going to be a Brexit plus, plus, plus. Does that make sense? Plus, plus, plus.
If I speak to Trump's team and Trump's close advisors, and even to President-elect Trump himself, none of them think Trump would have won unless Brexit had happened.
So you helped make Donald Trump president?
Well, it wasn't the direct object at the time of fighting for all those years for a referendum, but as a byproduct, it was part of it, yes.
I mean, there's no question about it that a lot of us that supported Trump also supported Brexit and English independence if they wanted it, and a lot of the other countries, if they want to get out of the EU, I mean, we understand that. We wanted to get out of the British Empire.
Nigel Farage got his reward by becoming the first British politician to have a face-to-face meeting with President-elect Donald Trump, while the British Prime Minister, Theresa May, waited for an invitation.
Yes, I look forward to working with President-elect Trump.
Any British Prime Minister, male or female, needs to get on with an American president. Even if you don't like them, even if you think they're half balmy, you've really got to get on with them because that relationship is so important to the United Kingdom.
I'm just very interested to know your feelings before that meeting, bearing in mind some of the things that Donald Trump said about women. Now, I'll probably feel slightly awkward reading this out, but I do think it's important to rehear what Donald Trump was recorded saying in the past, which is about women. When you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything. Grab them by the pussy. I mean, forgetting the fact that you're Prime Minister for a moment, how does that make you feel as a woman?
Well, look, I think that's unacceptable. But in fact, Donald Trump himself has said that and has apologised for it.
Whatever Trump's reputation, I'm sure that when Mrs. May goes into the Oval Office, there will not need to be a responsible adult in the room. I'm sure this is all going to be absolutely
I thought you volunteered at one stage to be the responsible adult.
But that wasn't for Newsnight, that was for Talk Radio, or whatever it was.
Donald Trump will go to Washington tomorrow as a political virgin, having never before held any public office. He keeps in his own office a picture of his hero Ronald Reagan, who had himself been much maligned as a dangerous maverick. So does Reagan's record in the White House offer clues about how the new president, Donald J. Trump, will perform?
Ronnie was the outsider, and he was a huge success. Trump, in some ways, is an even bigger outsider than Ronnie was. And yet, I feel pretty bullish. I feel pretty optimistic for what he's going to do.
Donald Trump is even more frightening than Reagan. He seems wilder, he seems more cavalier. He may end up being impeached within a very short period, within a very short time of his inauguration. On the other hand, it may end in tears for the rest of the world if he is willing to pick fights with anybody, anywhere, and his finger is on the nuclear button. God help us all.
They say in Washington that it's the job of every new administration to make the previous administration look good. And that won't be hard for Trump to do, I don't think.